some interesting and edgy posters. Here you have a series of wanted posters. Albert Bourla, you might recall, he's the CEO of Pfizer that Avi Yamini and I encountered on the streets of Davos and had a 3-minute scrum with him. We peppered him with questions. We got no answers.
Mr. Bourla, can I ask you, when did you know that the vaccines didn't stop transmission? How long did you know that without saying it publicly?
Thank you very much.
I'm sorry. Answer that question. I mean, we now know that the vaccines didn't stop transmission, but why did you keep it secret? You said it was 100% effective, then 90%, then 80%, then 70%. But we now know that the vaccines do not stop transmission. Why did you keep that secret?
Have a nice day.
There's Dr. Tedros of the World Health Organization. You might recall that our team bumped into him at the World Health Assembly a year ago in Berlin.
Okay,
Mr. Tedros, how are you? How are you,
NCD?
Mr. Tedros? If you could do lockdowns again, would you do them? If you could do lockdowns again, would you support them?
I'm sorry,
What time is it?
Mr. Tedros, if you could do lockdowns again, would you support them? That's what you get for unelected, unaccountable bureaucrats heading in there to the WHO conference, the World Health Summit.
And at the bottom is Pascal Soriot of AstraZeneca. We have not had direct contact with him, but we have been skeptical and critical of all three of these men who are the face, or at least the figureheads of a global public health, pharma, government, police, industrial complex. And you might be saying, Ezra, those are radical. Crimes against humanity, come on. Isn't that a little bit over the top? These aren't really criminals. They have a political disagreement with you, or maybe they're just getting rich. They're profiteers. You might say, Ezra, isn't it a little bit much to say they're crimes against humanity? Well, of course, they haven't been prosecuted or convicted for those crimes. But you might recall that one of the central means of truth and reconciliation after the Second World War and the Holocaust was the Nazi doctor trials. Because you might recall, the Nazis in their death camps had doctors, medical doctors like Joseph Mengele, doing experiments on the prisoners in these death camps. Atrocious, appalling, barbaric experiments, trying out, amputations and, doing atrocious things, pushing them towards death so they could do, like they were using them as lab animals in experiments. I won't gross you out with details. And after the war, there were trials in Nuremberg that are sometimes called the Nazi doctor trials. And out of that came a verdict, a judgment that has been called the Nuremberg Code. It's really just a part of the Nazi doctor trial judgment, which set out rules forevermore about the ethics of medicine and what doctors can and cannot do. You cannot go full Mengele. You cannot demand that people participate in experiments. You can ask them, but it has to be informed prior consent that can be withdrawn at any time. These are basic fundamentals of medicine. Of course, they predate the Nazi doctor trials, going back to the very beginning of medicine and the simple motto, do no harm. That's the Hippocratic Oath. Really, that's all of medical ethics in one phrase, do no harm. And so when you see people with radical signs saying crimes against humanity, and you might recoil and say that language is a little harsh, but is it? But is it a little harsh when people profit in the billions or tens of billions by having their untested experimental products forcibly injected into 1 billion arms? And when I say forcible, I don't know if anyone was pinned down and injected like they were in the Nazi death camps, but they were tantamount to that. They were said, do this or we'll fire you from your job. Do this or we'll ban you from your school, from public life, from travel, from going to restaurants. I suppose that's not quite the same as do this or we'll shoot you, which is how the Nazis rolled, but it's pretty close. So yeah, crimes against humanity, I'll listen. We'll keep you posted on what we see here at the protest. Very interesting, along the side here are pictures of people that the protesters say were killed or injured. Actually, in this case, it would all be killed by vaccines. And 4 years ago, that was regarded as a radical conspiracy theory. We now know that the drugs, the vaccines, had problems in it that were not disclosed. So much so, for example, one of the early vaccines, AstraZeneca's vaccine, has been totally removed from the market. But if you go back in time 4 years, you can see people like Justin Trudeau and World Health Organization people, Anthony Fauci people saying safe and effective. These people 4 years ago, their families and friends were called crazy, were called radical, were called conspiracy theorists, were called disinformationists because their family members died, they say, from the vaccine. They were called crazy. 4 years later, we know that the vaccines were not 100% safe and effective. And in fact, in various countries, millions, in some cases tens of millions of dollars are being paid out to the victims. It's a shame that they were denounced when they asked for help. That's all they were doing, asking for help. And the authorities denounced them and demonized them, adding insult to injury. Geneva is a pretty far journey. There's no direct flights from Canada, so we had to sort of hop, skip, and jump our way here. We're staying economy class, but between the two of us, the flights and the hotel will add up to more than $2,500. If you can help me cover the cost of that at nopandemictreaty.com, I'd be grateful. I'll give you as many updates as I can. We're going to try and jam in as many interviews and as much coverage as we can in 2 days, and we'll be back in Canada to ring the alarm bells. Visit nopandemictreaty.com.